Hello, everyone. Today I have a special guest, Matt Johnson. He has a number of podcasts focused in real estate and coaching those to build their own podcasts and own businesses within real estate. Today, we're going to talk about strategy and how to capitalize on the crazy market that it is today over the next few years. Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So real quick, let's give everyone a quick background beyond what I just gave about who you are and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I come from the coaching consulting space. I ended up starting a podcast to kind of promote that back in the day, 2015. That was Real Estate Uncensored. That was mainly focused on agents, but we've had a ton of investors on over the years in various capacities, and that led me into launching podcasts for other real estate coaches. So like we produce, podcasts like Real Estate Investor Huddle and Real Estate Money School and a bunch of others. And so a lot of those guys that run like residential real estate teams and also invest are my friends and clients. And that's kind of the circle that I run is people that have like built a professional service business or an investing business. And then they turned around and started a side business teaching other people how to kind of reproduce what they've done. So that's kind of how I got drawn into this world. And I still co-host Real Estate Uncensored, where we've had a whole bunch of folks like Chris Noggle and Chris Prefontaine and, a whole bunch of folks in the investing world on the show.
Awesome. Yeah. So essentially once you master a skill, you then help them build a brand, build a podcast, and, essentially build a side hustle. Say, hey, look, you've mastered a skill, take it out and make money from your knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Which, when you have a reputation within like a community like investors where it's such a small, like it's a big space compared to some others, but really it's still, especially at the upper echelons, it's a really small community and everybody knows each other. So if you really create like a breakthrough strategy in real estate investing, like it's not that hard of a skill to monetize and turn around and teach other people to do it because you can't be in every market all across the country anyway. And the more you become micro famous in that space of other investors, not only does it become easier to attract capital so that you can expand if you want to, but the alternative to expanding through your own capital and your own risk is by expanding by teaching other people how to do it and various like hybrids in between. So a lot of my friends and clients are in that space where they are expanding across the country, expanding their investing kind of machines. Once they get that machine dialed in their home country or home city, they start to expand. But then they can only expand so fast. They're limited by the capital and the deal flow.
That's right.
And so then it's like, well, what do you do? Like I've got this time, I've got this amazing machine that I built. Well, it's like, well, teach other people how to build that machine in the places where you can't get to anyway. And then essentially that turns into a nice, really high profit, low time investment business if you do it right.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I've been doing this for about 12 years, and over time I've learned a lot of skills that I'm now teaching other people, right? Through courses or, and to your point, I'm seeing a flood of capital come my way because they see me as one of the experts in the market to say, hey, Tom, how can I make money like you're making or whatever you're doing? So yeah, 100%, that's definitely the model. Cool. So this is really going to be a podcast then for, I guess, potentially real estate investors, but also I think more mainly real estate entrepreneurs, right? That have a skill set that they really want to capitalize on and then take it to the next level.
Yeah. Awesome. 100%. I think like when I have conversations with the smartest people that I know that are investors, essentially they're going, let's stockpile cash and stockpile almost like mental and emotional energy. Because they know that we don't know exactly how it's going to shake out. We don't know exactly how far the economy is going to be able to kick the can down the road and when the chickens are going to come home to roost and things are going to start crashing, whether that's commercial, whether that's multifamily, whatever.
Right. Yep.
Like there's definite, we're starting to see the effects, but we haven't seen a crash. We haven't seen huge volatility and these massive shifts yet that we can kind of see coming down the pipe. And so the question is, for them is, well, what do you do when you don't know where the opportunities are quite yet? Where are those little opportunities? Like, in the last crash, a lot of my friends got into the short sale market and, guys that had never done that before. They had sold, they did residential deals or they did fix and flips or buy and hold or whatever. And all of a sudden they go, hey, there's this huge market. There's huge money out there. Banks are getting into this. They're having these major issues. One of my friends, went to all the banks in his area in the Pac Northwest and built all the relationships with them and went from being a good agent, good team leader, but one of many, to having hundreds of listings at one time, doing hundreds of short sale deals. I think he did 1,000 deals a
Wow.
year way back in like I think it was the early 2000s. Ended up
Yeah.
being the number one residential sales team by deal numbers in the entire country, all because when things crashed, he looked around and went, "What's the new opportunity?"
Yep.
And he didn't know what it was, and he didn't have the skills for it either. So he built it, and then guess what? Now he runs a seven-figure business coaching company, teaching
Yep.
other people how to, get to where he's done. And so to me, like when I look at those people, the people that end up doing that in the crashes are some of the people that they've done it already. But we're going to see a new generation of younger guys, and guys
Yeah.
and gals in
Yeah.
their 30s and 40s that like this is their first real major crash they've ever been through. And some of them are going to completely freak out and they're going to pull
Yep.
back, and others are going to go, no, this is where the big opportunity is. And if I dive into something and I find a breakthrough, this is going to set me up for the next 10 years.
Yep. And so there's two key points there. And I've been harping pretty heavily on the commercial crash. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually, oddly enough, it's a long story how I get into this, but I'm investing in a barbershop chain. So I'm
Oh,
creating
yeah.
this barbershop chain. I can't cut hair, but and what I'm doing is I'm waiting for the most opportune time to pick up leases from commercial properties. And
Sure.
I live in Austin, Texas. It's a robust market, doing very well. And I'm going around to these commercial centers and I'm seeing all these vacancies. And the landlords are not yet biting on cheaper offers because they're not in
Oh,
pain quite yet, but they will be.
right.
And
They will
my
be.
prediction was between March to June, that commercial crash will be at a full throttle ahead, right? So to your point, you could see that as a complete risk and avoid that segment altogether, or think about how you can capitalize on acquiring very cheap assets and then maximizing the profits from there, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first one. And then if you're good enough and you do it right and you repeat it enough, you can then take that training and then
Mm-hmm.
create knowledge that you can sell from that. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just did an episode on this on the Microfamous podcast where something in the business has to be hard, and it's kind of like a seesaw. You've got sales and marketing on one end, and you've got the problem that you solved on the other. Which is the service or the product that you create or the thing that you do that actually generates the income. Which in this case would be the investing problem. So if you look at that and it's like a seesaw. If you solve the hard problem of where is the investing opportunity and you create a breakthrough in that, the sales and the marketing of that knowledge is going to be insanely easy.
Mm-hmm.
If you decide out of the clear blue sky you're going to become the 170,000th person to teach the BRRRR strategy, that's going to be you better have a sales and marketing strategy, right? But you better have a breakthrough on that end of the seat because it's like a seesaw, right? What the genius about, like, let's take a company like Apple, is they did something really, really hard and really valuable on both ends of the seesaw. They created amazing breakthrough products that nobody's ever seen before, and by the way, built an amazing brand that is just incredibly insightful, like, marketing strategy and how they created the tribe around their products. Like that's why Apple is so successful. It's not just because they create cool things. It's because they solve really, really hard problems on both the product end and the sales and marketing end. And so I think investors have an opportunity here to, like, if you solve the problem and where the investing opportunity is, the sales and marketing of that knowledge will come easy.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, I think it was Elon Musk or it was someone that was talking about the brand power of like an Apple, right? And so Tesla had it too, and Elon Musk, I think, tried to test it with his recent tequila marketing.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw that. So he
No.
like, I wonder if I could sell tequila. Well, he brands tequila and it sells out in day one, and it's like that. That's the power of a brand. And it was Gary Vee. He was talking about the power of brand. But to your point, once you have the problem, the skill set, and the knowledge to build that brand, the sales and marketing becomes a lot easier, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for investors, there's so many other ancillary benefits of being, quote unquote, micro famous in your space because it's such a small community, and there's a really rich, vibrant ecosystem of podcasts and people offering coaching and speaking and writing books and all this stuff. That it's a really cool and interesting, intellectually interesting space full of really smart people that are all building their own brands. And if you can find if you become that guy that wants to just teach the same thing everybody else is teaching, you're going to have a difficult time standing out because there is so much competition. But if you really do something intellectually interesting and compelling, and you become one of the people that comes out of this crash better for it, that's going to draw a lot of attention, and you're going to find it easy to fit into that ecosystem and essentially build that side business.
Yeah, great. I mean, I can think of three main names already. Like, Robert Kiyosaki, Tom Wheelwright, and Grant Cardone. Right. Mm-hmm. Grant Cardone, if you've seen him in interviews, not to cut him down, but he's not a genius by any means. He just, but he has a brand, right? And his brand has done
Yes.
really well.
He's a fast mover, not a deep
He's
thinker.
a fast mover with, very much ADD, but he, and then you have, the Tom Wheelwright, who's a tax strategist, and his program is very expensive, right? And so again, he's taken expertise, capitalized on it, and has essentially a teaching course now that is thousands of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of these entrepreneurs that have learned a skill, honed in on it, and then made it essentially like a passive business with a lot of sales and marketing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of like just the fulfillment side of it, like I get a lot of people that kind of come into my world or in contact with me because they build this amazing machine that produces a lot of deals. Like I've got a friend of mine that runs a call center in like out of Portland. They generate 80 appointments a day.
Oh, wow.
Right. So once you have that, like they don't like the business doesn't need him every day anymore.
That's right.
So he's built this incredible machine. He's getting all sorts of seller and buyer leads and all this stuff. And so he's built this amazing machine that now he's expanding across the country. But he's expanding by leasing office space, hiring people, expanding his call center, stuff like that. There's only so fast you can expand that.
Yep.
So what happens is you get this kind of like, great, now I'm working an hour a day, 2 hours a day. It's like, well, now what do I do? Like you get that sense of like, I want to do something to give back. I want to do something that feeds that sense of fulfillment and significance and leaves a legacy and stuff. And like, that's where I run into a lot of people, is where they go, man, like I need to start teaching other people how to do this, because I want that sense of legacy and fulfillment that I'm not getting from the regular business, because now it's systematized.
Yeah. And I'll just, talk for myself, right? I have several companies now, whether it be land development, this new barbershop thing, capital lending, and everything else in between. And I'm just now beginning to create courses to help people out. And so, because it's like, I do know enough to sell that knowledge, right? But it's taken me 12 years to get here. Cool. So let's switch sides a little bit here. I do want to talk about, okay, great. Matt and Tom, you guys have sold me, become an expert in real estate. There's opportunities, looming ahead. Let's maybe talk about what you've been hearing from your podcast guests. Where are they looking at in the next 2 to 3 years for opportunities to really capitalize and make money?
Okay, well,
which is a big question, I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is a big question, because it's so dependent on eviction moratoriums and all these crazy regulations that are going to come out, and then you stack executive orders and the constant ever shifting landscape on top of that. I mean, to me, like all of my friends that have like fairly systematized businesses are keeping their eyes out right now for your run-of-the-mill deals that they already know how to do, where they can look at it at a glance and they know whether the numbers make sense. And they're keeping an eye on that, going, if something happens tomorrow, is this still a profitable deal? Like if I go into this with the intention that it's a light flip, what happens if it crashes a month into the flip? Is it still worth holding on to for a few years? And if it is, they'll pull the trigger and do the deal. Otherwise, they're pulling back and they're basically setting aside capital, and they're getting things streamlined so that they're freeing up the time and mental energy to dive into whatever next opportunity they spot. So they're kind of freeing up their calendar. They're making sure things are systematic. For example, hiring maybe an acquisition manager who they can start to teach their existing system to, so that the deals that they already know how to do, that are like, just run-of-the-mill stuff that they already know how to teach somebody to do, they'll teach somebody to do it. That frees their time up so that they can go investigate and figure out where the next big opportunity is. So that's kind of what my friends are doing. They are expanding. They're looking at, the places in the Midwest that are a little bit more stable, the places that are always a little bit insulated, just the typical things that most investors think about. Some of the more savvier, higher level people that are into the multifamily or corporate game are building relationships right now with private money, equity, hedge funds, stuff like that, and just essentially setting themselves up. So if and when the hedge funds really pull the trigger and decide, what was that, BlackRock back in the day just went on a buying spree in 08, 09, 10, they want to be the guys that are the sources of that information and broker the deals and make the cuts off of that and like stay in the game that way. So, whether all that stuff, how much of that will turn out to be prescient and how much of it will turn to be, a waste of time because the opportunities are completely different than what we expected, well, that remains to be seen. It's impossible to know that now. But yeah, I think it's important to, like if you have an existing operation, if everything isn't documented and systematized now, now is the perfect time to do that.
Yeah. Yep.
Get everything documented, everything systematized, get it off your plate.
Yep. Yeah, great. So I would say, just to repeat one very key thing here. When the markets are flying high, skyrocketing up, very easy to ignore the downside risk, right? But we know there's something coming. We know that the recent bill, the stimulus, does not include an extension of the forbearance, right? So there's quite a few people coming to due here in the next 2 to 3 months. So there's that. To your point, now more than ever, it's important to understand the downside risk as well as the upside, right? And if there is substantial downside risk or not enough margin in the deal, maybe set the cash aside and wait for the deals to come. So there's that. I see a lot of opportunity again in commercial, and I think there is, in my opinion, two segments of the real estate market, right? There's the have-nots and the haves. And I see a lot of tailwinds for the haves, right? Low cost of debt, their jobs are still insulated. And then the have-nots in the C and D class, ordinarily, typically working in hotels, entertainment, services, restaurants, they're just getting hammered. And if you're a landlord, and I think I have a friend who manages a big debt fund, he's ponying up, expecting a lot of the landlords who own these C and D class, they own 4 to 10 units. They're not big players. But now they're behind on their mortgage payments. They can't afford to keep up the debt service. He sees a lot of risk in that category, right? And so, long story short, I think we just gave you like 3 or 4 opportunities.
And just to circle back on the interesting thing about it that I think a lot of investors overlook is this: once you find something that is a repeatable type of deal, right? The hardest part then shifts. It becomes a marketing problem, right? So if you know that C and D class investors and the smaller players are going to end up wanting to sell out and cash out and go lick their wounds, it's like, great, you know where the opportunity is, but how do you reach them? How do you reach out to them and get their attention in a way that builds trust and doesn't make you seem like a vulture,
Right.
waiting to pick their carcass clean, because that's going to be, those, one of my friends said a great thing. He said, look, the people that succeed in real estate in the downtimes are the ones that can have the difficult conversations. When you can look a fellow investor or an owner across their kitchen table and they trust you because you had the tough conversation with them, that's going to make it a lot easier to close those deals. And if you're already visible in your space and you've already spent some time kind of building trust and you have a network of relationships with other influential people in the investing space, when they go check you out, they're going to find, oh, this seems like a really trustworthy person. And it becomes a much easier to solve that marketing problem of how do I find those next deals, because it's going to shift. Like, somebody's going to figure out how to close those C and D and how to transfer those small portfolios and salvage them and get them in. The question is then, well, where do you find the next 10 deals?
That's right. I mean, this is brilliant, right? Because again, it's the idea that if you're an entrepreneur in real estate or an investor and you find a niche that works, to your point, and it can be repeated, it then goes from proof of concept to a proven result, and then you get to a point where you see the success, and then you need capital and marketing to get the capital to really scale up operations, which is really running a business. I'm sure from your experience, scaling up is one of the hardest things to do, and really the entire journey of a business, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which is why you have companies that offer either turnkey or a back-end operations platform to help people scale up. Because that's absolutely. I mean, it's hard enough to get started, and most people falter there. But there's a certain percentage of people that will always break through that. They'll always get established. The question is, how do you scale up? Because then that again, it shifts to becoming partly a marketing problem, and then the other part of it is the team building and leadership problem, which has always fascinated me. And that's why even within the residential side of real estate, I was always drawn to the team leaders, the ones that were true entrepreneurs, because it's the same thing across investing and the residential side, which is that the people that rise to the top, that do the most deals, they're always the best leaders, the best team builders, and they're really, really, I would call them almost marketing engineers. When I look at guys like the Gary Boomershine, for example, or a Lance Loken, like these are guys that they're software or rocket scientist engineer level intellects applying their minds to a marketing challenge, and they approach it in the same way, extremely methodically, extreme, like very, very step by step, very systematic. And what they end up with is a marketing system that becomes a machine that constantly
Right.
brings in new deals. And behind the scenes, they have an operations machine run by unbelievably good systems, manned by good people that
Yep.
just keeps those deals fulfilling. So Jeff Cohn, who has gotten into the investing game over the last couple of years and now acquires about 10 properties a month, a pretty healthy Midwest-based kind of investing machine. He's building his investing machine the same way he built his residential team, which is systems first, people second. Which sounds weird to people that are all in on
Yeah.
leadership, but it makes total sense. Like once you realize, like he said to me one time, he's like, I don't want my business to be reliant on rock star people. He said, I want to have rock star systems run by good people.
Yep. That's smart.
Yeah, and to me, that's where a lot of people that want to like scale up their investing operations, we naturally gravitate towards that idea that it's the right person. I just need to find that
Yep.
person. I can be running full speed and throw everything over my shoulder at them, and they catch it and they run with me. It's like
Yep.
no, like focus on getting your systems dialed in, and then you'll be able to bring somebody into the business that you can train and have them up and running in 2 to 4 weeks,
Yeah.
and you replace them the same way.
100% agree. In fact, one of the things I teach in one of my lessons is this idea of running your personal life like a business, right? From a financial statement standpoint, all the way down to systems, people doing your accounting work, and all. I mean, just for example, one thing that I've been doing is this year is trying to scale up my personal life, right? So simply hiring someone to do even like your meal prep, which sounds ridiculous, right? But spending
Not to
40
me.
bucks, yeah, but spending $40 a week to save 10 hours a month, goes a long way. So
Yeah.
the whole idea of creating systems and then hiring people to manage the systems, and then that compounds in itself and allows you to spend time doing things that really move the needle, at the very top. So, yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
I think most people way overestimate how many quality, hard mental thought hours we have in a day, like the time to do our best work.
Yeah.
I think for most people it's 3 hours,
Yep. 3 to 5 at
maybe
most.
4.
Yeah.
Like I don't book any calls in the afternoon. I work from 7 or 8 to noon,
Yep.
and anything after that is optional because I know I don't have that much of my best work in me. And I think people that work all day thinking they're doing their best work,
They're not.
it's really just a lack of systems, because once you have the systems and you realize that the 80% of what you're doing with your time isn't
That's
all
right.
that valuable, isn't moving the needle.
Monotonous emails and yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. 100% agree. Yeah. I'm a, early riser, and about 11 a.m. noon, I'm done. Like,
Yes,
then
exactly.
then I just do emails and phone calls, and it's like really simple stuff. My
Yep.
brain's fried.
Yeah, exactly. That's that's funny. That's exactly the same way I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, this has been great. So if someone needs help from you or coaching on how they can get started with their own business in real estate, where can they reach you? What do you have for offerings in terms of content or books or courses or anything?
Yeah, I would say probably the best place to go is getmicrofamous.com, because you can check out the podcast and the book there. You can get a free digital copy of the book. And then, of course, you can reach me, and if you're interested in starting a podcast because you already have some really awesome investing technique that you want to share with other people, and you want to build a podcast around that, awesome, love to talk about that. Or even if you just want to share your story, let's connect, because we produce some podcasts in that space, and we love to connect guests up with smart hosts. So we're always on the lookout for people that have something to share, just a good story in the investing world, because we've got multiple podcasts to put you on. So definitely people can reach out on getmicrofamous.com or look me up on Facebook.
Awesome. I'll have to join your podcast and walk through the chaos of my journey. So
We can dig into it.
awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Cool. Thanks.